to biology, the scientific study of life. Animals use the chemical energy in food to sustain, form, and function. All organisms require chemical energy for growth, repair, physiological processes, including movement in the case of animals, regulation, and reproduction. Organisms can be classified by how they obtain this energy. Autotrophs, such as plants use light energy to build energy-rich organic molecules and then use those organic molecules for fuel. In contrast, heterotrophs, such as animals, must obtain their chemical energy from food which contains organic molecules synthesized by other organisms. Bioenergetics. The flow of energy through an animal. It is bioenergetics ultimately limits the animal's behavior, growth, and reproduction and determines how much food it needs. Studying an animal's bioenergetics tells us a great deal about the animal's adaptations, energy sources, and allocation. Animals harvest chemical energy from the food they eat. Food is digested by enzymatic hydrolysis, and energy containing molecules are absorbed by body cells. Once absorbed, these energy containing molecules have several possible fates. Most are used to generate ATP by the catabolic process of cellular respiration and fermentation. The chemical energy of ATP powers cellular work, enabling cells, organs, and organ system to perform the many functions that keep an animal alive. Because the production and use of ATP generate heat, an animal continuously gives off heat to its surroundings. After the energetic needs of staying alive are met, any remaining molecules from food can be used in biosynthesis, including body growth and repair, synthesis of storage material such as fat, and production of gametes. As shown in this video, bioenergetics of an animal and overview. Biosynthesis requires both carbon skeletons for new structures and ATP to power their assembly. In some situations, biosynthetic products such as body fat can be broken down into fuel molecules for production of additional ATP depending on the needs of the animal. Quantifying energy use. Understanding the bioenergetics of animals depend on the ability to quantify their energy needs. How much of the total energy an animal obtains from food does it need just to stay alive? How much energy must be expended to walk, run, swim, or fly from one place to another? What fraction of energy intake can be used for production? Physiologists obtain answers to such questions by measuring the rates at which animals use chemical energy and how these rates change in different circumstances. The amount of energy an animal uses in a unit of times is called its metabolic rate, the sum of all the energy requiring biochemical reactions occurring over a given time interval. Energy is measured in calories or kilocalories. Kilocalories is 1000 calories, the unit calorie with a capital C, as used by many nutritionists, is actually a kilocalorie. Metabolic rate can be determined in several ways because nearly all of the chemical energy used in cellular respiration eventually appears as heat. Metabolic rate can be measured by monitoring an animal's rate of heat loss. Researchers can use a calorimeter, which is a closed insulated chamber equipped with a device that records an animal's heat loss to measure metabolic rate for small animals. A more indirect way to measure metabolic rate is to determine the amount of oxygen consumed or carbon dioxide produced by an animal's cellular respiration. As shown in this figure, over long periods, the rate of food consumption and the energy content of the food, about 4.5 to 5 gram of fat, can be used to estimate metabolic rate. However, this method must account for the energy stored in food that the animal cannot use, the energy lost in feces and urine. Bioenergetic strategy. Back to this photo. This photograph shows a ghost crab in a respirometer. A temperature is held constant in the chamber with air of known oxygen concentration following through. The crab's metabolic rate is calculated from the difference between the amount of oxygen entering and the amount of oxygen leaving the respirometer. The crab is on a treadmill running at a constant speed as measurements are made. Okay, closer look. Bioenergetic strategies. All animals' metabolic rate is closely related to its bioenergetic strategy. There are two basic bioenergetic strategies found in animals. Bears and mammals are mainly endothermic, meaning that their bodies were warmed mostly by heat generated by metabolism, and their body temperature is maintained within a relatively narrow range. Endothermy is a high energy strategy that permits intense, long duration activity over a wide range of environmental temperatures. In contrast, most fishes, amphibians, reptiles, other than bears and invertebrates, are ectothermic, meaning that they gain their heat mostly from external sources. The ectothermic strategy requires a much smaller energy expenditure by an animal than the endothermic strategy because of the high energy cost of heating or cooling. An endothermic body in general, endotherms have higher metabolic rates than ectotherms. Okay. Influences on metabolic rate. The metabolic rates of animals are affected by many factors besides whether the animal is an endotherm or an ectotherm. One of the of an animal biologist must intriguing but largely unanswered questions has to do with the relationship between body size and metabolic rate. Size and metabolic rate. By measuring the metabolic rates of many species of vertebrates and invertebrates, physiologists have shown that the amount of energy it takes to maintain each gram of body weight is inversely related to body size. Each gram of a mouse, for instance, requires about 20 times as many calories as a gram of an elephant, even though the whole elephant, of course, uses for more calories than the whole mouse. The higher metabolic rate of a small animal tissues demands a proportionally greater rate of oxygen delivery correlated with its higher metabolic rate per gram. The smaller animal also has a higher breathing rate, blood volume relative to its size and heart rate bolus, and it must eat much more food per unit for body mass. The explanation for the inverse relationship between metabolic rate and size is still unclear. One hypothesis is that for endotherms, the smaller the animal, the greater the energy cost of maintaining a stable body temperature. In effect, the smaller an animal is, the greater its surface to volume ratio is, and thus the surroundings. Logical as this hypothesis seems, it cannot be the complete explanation, as it fails to explain the inverse relationship between metabolism and size in ectotherms, which do not use metabolic heat to maintain body temperature. Although this relationship has been extensively documented in both endotherms and ectotherms, researchers continue to search for its underlying causes. Activity and metabolic rate. Every animal experiences a range of metabolic rates. A minimum rate powers the basic functions that support life, such as maintenance, breathing, and heartbeat. The metabolic rate of a non-growing endotherm that is at rest, has an empty stomach, and is not experiencing stress is called the basal metabolic rate, BMR. The BMR for humans averages about 1,600 to 1,800 kilocalorie per day for adult males, and about 1,300 to 1,500 kilocalorie per day for adult females. These BMRs are about equivalent to the rate of energy used by 75-watt light bulb. In an ectotherm, body temperature changes with the temperature in the animal's surroundings, and so does metabolic rate, unlike BMRs, which can be determined within a range of environmental temperature. The minimum metabolic rate of an ectotherm must be determined as a specific temperature. The metabolic rate of a resting, fasting, non-stressed ectotherm at a particular temperature is called its standard metabolic rate, SMR. For both ectotherms and endotherms, activity has a large effect on metabolic rate. Even a person reading quietly at a desk, or an insect twitching its wings consumes energy beyond the BMR or SMR maximum metabolic rates. The highest rates of ATP utilization occur during peak activity, such as lifting heavy weights, sprinting, or high speed swimming. Okay. In general, an animal's maximum possible metabolic rate is inversely related to the duration of activity, as shown in this figure. Um, is Contrasts in ectothermic and endothermic strategies for sustaining activity over different time intervals. Both an alligator ectothermic and a human endothermist are capable of very intense exercise in short space of a minute or less. During these sprints, the ATP present in muscle cells and ATP generated anaerobically by glycolysis are sufficient to power the activity. Neither the ectotherm nor the endotherm can sustain their maximum metabolic rates and peak levels of activity over longer periods of exercise. Though the endotherms has an advantage in such endurance tests, sustained activity depends on the aerobic process of cellular respiration for ATP supply, and in endotherms, respiration rate is about 10 times greater than an ectotherm's. Only a few ectotherms, such as migratory monarch butterflies or salmon, are capable of long duration activities. Between the extreme of BMR or SMR and maximum metabolic rate, many factors influence energy requirement, including age, sex, size, and body and environmental temperature, quality and quantity of food, activity level, oxygen availability, and hormonal balance. Time of day also plays a role. Birds, humans, and many insects are usually active and therefore have their highest metabolic rates during daylight hours.